It's Storytime Productions.
Hello, my friends. Here's another 3-pack of some horror stories, and I hope you brought your chapstick because these 3 probably make your butthole pucker up. Enjoy.
Story 1.
The cold, sterile air of the morgue clung to Amy's skin as she moved through the dimly lit corridors. It was a night like any other, or so she thought. Amy had been working the night shift at St. Agnes Hospital's morgue for years, acclimating herself to the eerie silence and the unsettling hum of fluorescent lights. Tonight, however, would be different. As the clock struck midnight, the hum seemed to fade, replaced by an unsettling stillness. Amy, a young woman with a penchant for the macabre, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. A sense of unease crept into the corners of her consciousness, and she found herself glancing over her shoulder at every echo and creak. In the silence, a subtle noise reached her ears, a faint rustling like fabric sliding against metal. She paused, her eyes narrowing in an attempt to locate the source. The morgue, usually filled with the stillness of the deceased, now seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Cautiously, Amy followed the sound, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. The rustling led her to the door of the autopsy room, its frosted glass window revealing nothing but darkness beyond. As she pushed the door open, a chilling draft grazed her skin, and the sterile scent of formaldehyde hung heavy in the air. The room was dimly illuminated by the overhead lights, casting long shadows that danced on the pull-out body tables lining the walls. 20 of them stood like silent sentinels, each covered with a white sheet. Amy hesitated, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of movement. The rustling persisted, growing louder as if beckoning her further into the chamber of the dead. Summoning her courage, Amy approached the nearest table. With a deep breath, she grasped the edge of the sheet and pulled it back. To her horror, the body beneath stirred, its limbs twitching unnaturally. Amy stumbled back, her heart pounding as she watched the once lifeless form come to grotesque life before her eyes. The other tables responded in pure creepiness, sheets slithering to the floor as corpses rose with eerie grace. Panic gripped Amy as she realized she was surrounded by the reanimated dead. Their eyes, vacant and milky, fixated on her with a hunger that transcended the grave. Flight mode kicked in, and Amy sprinted towards the exit, the haunting moans of the undead echoing in her wake. As she burst through the doors into the hallway, Amy skidded to a stop. The morgue, once a place of silent repose, had transformed into a nightmare. The walking dead shuffled towards her from all directions, their limbs moving with an unsettling cadence. Amy was trapped. Frantically, she looked for an escape route. The emergency exit sign flickered at the end of the corridor, promising a path to safety. With a surge of adrenaline, Amy darted toward it, weaving through the advancing horde. The undead reached out with cold, grasping hands, their moans intensifying with every step. The emergency exit swung open, revealing a moonlit graveyard beyond. Amy hesitated for a moment, contemplating the risk of facing the unknown outdoors. The relentless advance of the reanimated corpses left her with no choice. She plunged into the graveyard, the uneven ground beneath her feet slowing her escape. The moon cast an eerie glow on the tombstones, creating long shadows that seemed to stretch and writhe. Amy's breath caught in her throat as she realized the graveyard was not empty. From the soil, more figures emerged, zombified remnants of the deceased, clawing their way to the surface. Trapped between the relentless pursuit of the morgue's undead inhabitants and the freshly awakened corpses in the graveyard, Amy fought back the rising wave of panic. She needed a plan, a way to navigate through the twisted labyrinth of death closing in around her. With quick thinking, Amy noticed an old chapel at the edge of the graveyard. Determined to find sanctuary, she sprinted towards it, the undead trailing behind her. The chapel door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior. Amy slammed it shut behind her, barricading it with a heavy pew. The chapel offered a temporary respite, but Amy knew she couldn't stay hidden forever. Her eyes darted around, searching for any sign of salvation. To her relief, she noticed a trapdoor in the corner of the chapel leading to a narrow underground passage. Without hesitation, Amy descended into the darkness below, the trapdoor closing with a muffled thud. The narrow tunnel stretched before her, and she moved through it with trepidation. As she ventured deeper, the sounds of the undead above became faint echoes, replaced by the distant drip of water and the eerie silence of the catacombs. The passage led Amy to a forgotten part of the hospital, a labyrinth of interconnected tunnels and chambers that seemed untouched by time. In her desperate flight, she stumbled upon a room filled with medical supplies. A glimmer of hope flickered within her as she spotted a radio on the table. With trembling hands, she tuned it to the emergency frequency. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Amy from St. Agnes Hospital. I'm trapped, surrounded by the undead. Is anyone out there?" Static greeted her, but she persisted. After what felt like an eternity, a voice crackled through the radio. "This is Central Dispatch. Amy, help is on the way. Hold tight." Relief washed over her, but the sound of approaching footsteps in the tunnel reminded her that time was of the essence. Amy grabbed a flashlight and a medical kit, mustering the strength to continue her journey through the catacombs. As she navigated the winding tunnels, she stumbled upon an ancient burial chamber. The walls were adorned with faded frescoes depicting scenes of death and resurrection. The air in the chamber grew colder, and Amy sensed a presence lingering in the shadows. A whisper echoed through the catacombs, sending a shiver down her spine. "Leave this place, Amy. The dead do not rest peacefully here." The voice seemed to emanate from the ancient murals, as if the spirits trapped within them sought to communicate. Determined to survive, Amy pressed on, her flashlight revealing the path ahead. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Amy emerged into the hospital basement. The distant wails of the undead still echoed, but the catacombs had granted her a temporary reprieve. She climbed the stairs, emerging into the sterile environment of the hospital once more. As she stepped into the well-lit hallway, a team of emergency responders rushed towards her. Relief flooded Amy's senses as they surrounded her, offering protection from the horrors she had faced in the morgue and the graveyard. In the aftermath of that night, St. Agnes Hospital became a place of whispered legends, a story passed down among the staff about the night the dead came to life. Amy, forever changed by her encounter, left her job at the morgue, haunted by the memories of that fateful night.
Story 2.
The swamp known as Lurker's Haven was a place shrouded in mystery and fear. Nestled deep within the heart of the twisted forest, its murky waters held a secret known to few. Locals warned of a creature lurking beneath the surface, a monster born from ancient curses and forgotten tales. The stories whispered of a massive, grotesque being that feasted upon the souls of innocent wanderers. No one dared to venture near the swamp at night, except for a brave few who scoffed at the superstitions. Among them was Sarah, a young and curious woman eager to unravel the truth. Determined to prove the legends wrong, she set out one evening, guided only by the pale moonlight that filtered through the dense foliage. As Sarah approached the water's edge, an eerie silence descended upon the land. The croaking of toads ceased, and even the nocturnal creatures slept. She noticed movement in the water, ripples spreading across its surface. Fear gripped Sarah's heart, but her curiosity propelled her forward. She stepped closer, feeling the dampness of the earth beneath her boots. Suddenly, the water erupted in a violent upheaval, spraying droplets of icy cold liquid in all directions. It formed a monstrous figure, standing taller than any human, with decaying flesh and eyes that burned with an unholy fire. The creature, covered in slimy moss, emerged from the depths of the swamp and fixed its sinister gaze upon Sarah. Paralyzed with fear, Sarah watched as the creature reached out its elongated arms, fingers ending in sharp claws. Its mouth twisted into a wicked grin, revealing rows of jagged teeth. The creature let out a guttural growl that reverberated through the night, awaking the slumbering creatures of the swamp. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The monster lunged forward, but Sarah managed to escape its grasp. She splashed through the murky swamp, desperately trying to elude the hideous creature. Its heavy footsteps echoed behind her, getting closer with each passing moment. The sounds of sloshing water mixed with Sarah's terrified screams, creating a cacophony of horror. The moonlight revealed a dilapidated hunting cabin ahead, buried within the gnarled woods. Sarah rushed toward it, praying for safety behind its rotting walls. She slammed the door behind her, breathless and trembling. The cabin offered little comfort, its walls covered in cobwebs and dust, but it provided a temporary sanctuary from the looming darkness. Peering through the dismal room's sole window, Sarah noticed the creature circling the cabin hungrily. Its vile stench wafted through the cracks, filling the air with the odor of decay. Its eyes, glowing like embers, never left her. She could sense the malevolence emanating from the monster as it clawed at the door, the wood groaning under its force. Sarah had to escape, or become another nameless victim of the monster's insatiable hunger. She searched the cabin desperately, hoping to find something, anything, that would aid her escape. Her hand stumbled upon a dusty journal, its pages yellowed with age. As she flipped through its entries, she discovered a passage recounting ancient rituals and the history of Lurker's Haven. The journal spoke of a powerful amulet, hidden deep within the swamp, said to possess the ability to banish the monster. Filled with newfound hope, Sarah resolved to find it. Armed only with the journal and a flashlight, she crept out of the cabin, stepping gingerly through the treacherous swamp. The creature sensed her escape and gave chase once more, its thunderous footsteps echoing behind her. Sarah navigated the murky terrain, guided by glimpses of moonlight reflecting off the swamp's surface. Her heart raced with adrenaline as she caught sight of a small island in the center of the swamp. It held the promise of the ancient amulet of salvation. With every ounce of remaining strength, Sarah propelled herself toward the island. She plunged knee-deep into the water, fatigue threatening to engulf her. The creature grew closer, its foul breath hot against her neck. But just as it lunged for her, Sarah found the amulet buried in the island's soil. Summoning all her courage and faith, she held the amulet aloft and recited the sacred incantation scripted in the journal. A brilliant light burst forth from the amulet, blinding in its intensity. The creature screeched in pain, its monstrous form writhing as it fought against the amulet's power. With a final cry, the creature burst into flames, consumed by the ancient magic of the amulet. The night air filled with the sound of sizzling flesh and the sickening smell of burning moss. The swamp monster was vanquished, its reign of terror finally over. Sarah's legs weakened, and she sank to her knees, the amulet clutched tightly in her hand. The moon's gentle glow filtered through the treetops as the night retreated into dawn. She had faced the abomination that lurked beneath the forbidden waters and emerged victorious.
Story 3.
In the heart of the bustling city, nestled within a towering high-rise condo, lived a young couple named Emma and David. Their home was an epitome of modernity and luxury, filled with sleek furnishings and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered breathtaking views of the cityscape. Yet, as they were about to discover, there was an eerie presence lurking within their chic abode, a presence that would shatter their peaceful existence. One rainy evening, Emma and David were going through their collection of vintage treasures, each item a testament to their shared passion for the peculiar and unique. Among their eclectic assortment of curiosities, there was one item that held a special place: a porcelain doll. It had a delicate face with glassy blue eyes, and its crimson lips held a perpetual, enigmatic smile. Emma had found it at a flea market years ago, and it had been a source of fascination ever since. As the couple examined the doll, a feeling of unease washed over them. David, a skeptic when it came to supernatural occurrences, teased Emma about her attachment to the doll. "It's just an old doll, Em. You can't possibly believe all those ghost stories," he said, grinning. Emma, though unnerved, tried to laugh it off. "You're right, it's just my overactive imagination playing tricks on me," she replied, placing the doll back on its ornate shelf. Little did they know, the sinister force that had taken residence within that porcelain figure was far from Emma's imagination. That night, as the rain battered their windows, something sinister began to stir in the darkness. Around midnight, Emma awoke to a faint sound. It was a soft, haunting melody that seemed to come through the walls of their high-rise condo. Disoriented and still half asleep, she slaps David, who lay beside her. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. David rubbed his eyes and strained to listen. The eerie melody seemed to grow louder, echoing through the silent apartment. "What is that?" he mumbled. The couple rose from their bed, their curiosity piqued. Following the haunting music, they made their way to the living room. There, illuminated only by the dim glow of city lights filtering through the windows, they found the source of the sound, the porcelain doll. The doll had come to life. Its glassy blue eyes now held a malevolent gleam, and its crimson lips curled into a wicked grin. It danced on its shelf, its delicate feet tapping rhythmically to the eerie tune that emanated from its tiny, lifeless mouth. Emma and David stood frozen in terror as they watched the impossible unfold before their eyes. The doll's movements were graceful yet haunting, like a marionette being manipulated by unseen hands. It spun, twirled, and leaped with a sinister elegance that sent shivers down their spines. Suddenly, the doll stopped and turned its lifeless gaze towards them. It pointed a tiny porcelain finger directly at Emma, its grin widening to reveal rows of tiny, sharp teeth. A guttural voice not belonging to the doll whispered in their ears, "You shouldn't have awakened me." Terrified and trembling, the couple tried to flee, but the doll's voice seemed to fill the room, and its presence felt inescapable. It was as if the condo itself had become a prison, trapping them with this malevolent force. The doll continued its eerie dance, its movements growing more frenzied and unsettling. Emma and David watched in horror as it leaped from the shelf and floated toward them, its eyes never leaving Emma's. Before they could react, the doll lunged at her with surprising speed and strength. Emma let out a blood-curdling scream as the doll's tiny, sharp teeth sank into her arm. David fought desperately to pry the doll off, but it clung to her like a rabid creature. Blood oozed from the wound, staining the pristine floors of their condo. With a surge of adrenaline, David managed to rip the doll away from Emma's arm and flung it across the room. They watched in disbelief as it crashed against the wall and shattered into 1,000 porcelain shards, its malevolent presence finally vanishing. Breathing heavily and nursing her wounded arm, Emma and David realized that their encounter with the haunted doll had left them scarred, both physically and mentally. They knew they had to leave their once beloved high-rise condo, a place that had become a living nightmare. As they packed their belongings and left behind the shattered remnants of their life in that haunted abode, they couldn't help but wonder if the doll had truly been vanquished, or if it would find a new victim in another unsuspecting soul. One thing was certain: the memory of that horrifying night would haunt them for the rest of their lives, a reminder that even in the most luxurious of settings, darkness could lurk just beneath the surface, waiting to shatter their reality and plunge them into a world of unimaginable terror. Hope you enjoyed. Got more good mind screw type coming, watch for those, and don't forget to check my other channel. Twist Ellie's Twisted Clips, links on my page, and like, subscribe, and share for me, it's much appreciated. And until next time, my friends, I will see you on the dark side. Sweet nightmares.
Subscribe.